Good morning, traders. I am Emily Vani, the CEO of the Investment Banking Institute and your host here at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Joining me is trading anchor Bill Olson, who brings more than 30 years of institutional trading experience to our program. At Trade Talk, we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Today is Wednesday, March 5th. Stocks are coming off another sharply lower session yesterday after the retreat looked like it may turn into a rebound. All three major indices closed the day in the red. The Dow fell 670 points or more than 1.5%. The S&P 500 tumbled 71 points or about 1.25%. The Nasdaq gave up 64 points or 0.35%. But let's get into Wednesday's action with what is happening in the markets this morning.
Hi, yes. Good morning, Emily. I'm watching the S&Ps tightly. I mean, we're up 0.15%. I mean, we were up like, 0.4, half a 1% earlier this morning. Yeah, but the reason for the bounce back was because yesterday, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, came out and talked about, later today, they're going to be making an announcement on tariff reductions with respect to Canada and China. And this morning, he kind of walked it back. And he said, yeah, they're looking at it, and he's talking about the agreements, and maybe making some changes to the agreement. It's fuzzy. I got to get more details on it, but overall, I mean, you look at the European markets, and they're displaying a strong upside move on these new spending plans that are coming out of Germany. China's talking stimulus action in their two sessions meeting. That's positive, and President Trump, he did address a joint session of Congress last night. There weren't a whole lot of new details. I mean, he talked about what you would expect. But what was interesting, he did not mention or discuss a possible tariff reduction announcement with respect to Canada or Mexico in his speech. So yeah, that's a little bit concerning. So the market's going to be paying attention to that. Upcoming, you got to worry about Congress, because Congress say they remain challenged to avert that government shutdown, which is going to occur next week if the funding runs out, because funding is scheduled to run out on March 14th, which is Friday. So we got to pay a little attention to that. In terms of earnings, crowdsource delivered okay earnings, but the stock's fallen this morning. After the bell today, we got MRVL, VEEV Systems, Zscaler, MDB. They're all scheduled to release. I see Jazz Pharmaceuticals. They're acquiring Chimerix for $8.55 per share. And let's not forget, tomorrow we got an ECB announcement, and they're looking to cut rates. So you got this big positive move in Europe right now, and tomorrow you got a possible ECB rate cut. That's kind of good. And let's take a look at what's going on in Europe. We're looking at the DAX. The DAX is up 3.45%. That's 770 points. It's huge. It's a big move. I mean, they're planning a 528 billion, 500 euros. Fund to strengthen the country's infrastructure and defensive capabilities. So they're really kind of working towards, going to produce some more defense stocks, which defense stocks are just rallying in Europe right now. London, we're looking at the FTSE. The FTSE's up 41 points or 0.47%. You're seeing positive action in the banking stocks and the defense stocks. In France, France trading higher by 164 points. That's 2.04%. The expectations of increased defense spending and higher borrowing from in the Eurozone, that could really revive that economy. So yeah, we're kind of positive on that. Then we're taking a look at what happened last night in Asia, and we're looking at the Nikkei. The Nikkei was up 87 points, which is 0.23%. It was a choppy trading sessions. Gains were kind of capped from a BOJ governor who kind of indicated that further rate hikes are coming. Hong Kong, on the other hand, jumped 2.84%. That's 652 points. Chinese Premier Li Qiang said the government will ramp up fiscal stimulus to guard its economy against changes in unforeseen against any new economic changes that are unforeseen, because you look at the tariffs on Mexico and China. We don't know what's going to happen. Mexico and Canada, we don't know if there's going to be more tariffs on China, but they're kind of preparing for it. So Hong Kong took that stimulus note very positively, and in China, the Shanghai market closed up, 0.53% because they did set their GDP growth targets of around 5% for 2025. And that happened during that two sessions meeting, and they increased their budget deficit target to 4% of GDP. So that's all positive. Then we're taking a look on oil. Oil remains a key factor. We're looking at oil. It's down over 1% this morning. Now, the API data came out last night, and according to their data, stockpiles fell by 1.455 million barrels. That's typically bullish for oil prices, but those OPEC plans to increase production are still weighing on sentiment, and that's why you're seeing oil down over 1% this morning. And that's what I have for you in terms of morning market update, Emily.
Bill, no shortage of information to be watching this morning, and it seems to be, swaying minute from minute, what the markets are reacting to. And good thing you have NewsWare because you're watching all of this information. It's covering things like political issues and news. You're looking at things like earnings and economic events. So you're keeping track of all of it. We're going to get through a bunch of the details throughout the show today, and we're going to first start with earnings action here, Bill. What is going on there?
You got to talk about the big one, CrowdStrike, CRWD, Charlie, Richard, William, David. They beat by 17 cents. They did it on higher revenue. Look at the stock this morning. It's down 8.19%. We're talking Ross Stores, ticker ROST. Ross Stores delivered a beat of 13 cents. And it delivered a beat of 13 cents. And that was done on lower revenue. You look at that stock this morning, the stock's down 1.04%. Then we're talking Flutter, Flutter Entertainment, ticker FLUT, Frank, Larry, Uncle Thomas. Listen, they beat by $1.21. They did it on higher revenue. I mean, they guided good. I mean, stock's up 0.68%. Take it. I'll take it. Upcoming after the bell today, we get Zscaler, ticker ZS, Zebra Sam. Their EPS is 69 cents. Expected move is 11.16%. We get Viva Systems, ticker VEEV, Victor Edward Victor. Their EPS is $1.58. Expected move is 10.31%. And we got Marvel Technologies, ticker MRVL, Michael Richard, Victor Larry. Their EPS is 59 cents. Expected move is 13.34%. That's going to be a key one that the markets will be watching, and that's what I have for you in terms of earnings action.
A number of key earnings there, Bill. As you pointed out, you'll be following that using your NewsWare, and it has been a big week for retail earnings. There was one retail stock that was your pick of the day yesterday that did release earnings. We will check in on that one by the end of the show. More to dive in here, including economic events this morning, a bunch of data to be keeping track of on that front. So, Bill, what is going on in terms of the day's economic events?
At 8:15 a.m. this morning, we get the ADP employment report. Estimates are for a rating of 148K. I think that's going to be a little high. There's a lot of that's just a little bit too high, I think. At 10 a.m., we get factory orders. Also at 10 a.m., we get the ISM Services Index. That's going to be the key one for the day. That's expected to come in at 53, which would be slightly better than the previous reading of 52.8. Then at 10:30 a.m., we get the EIA oil stockpiles reports. Then at 2 p.m. This afternoon, 2 p.m. Eastern, we get the Fed's Beige Book. And that's what I have for you in terms of economic data hitting the tape this morning, Emily.
Bill, speaking of economic data hitting the tape, I have my NewsWare alert set up for those economic reports. And as we are recording this morning, it looks like those ADP employment numbers did come in well below expected at 77,000 jobs added. So hitting the tape here as we are on air. And again, I had that economic alert set up, so I saw that hit the tape well below expectations. Speaking of hitting the tape, there's still other types of news and information hitting the tape this morning. Bill, you're watching things like merger news, guidance news, shareholders meetings, buyback news. You're also looking at your stocks grouped together like your FANG stocks and your Dow 30 stocks. So Bill, what else do you see is possibly moving the markets today?
I'm just looking at my I'm looking at my Dow stocks. I got 16 higher, 13 lower, the rest unchanged. I'm looking at my FANG stocks. I am showing positive action. I got to tell you, I am showing positive action in the FANG stocks. I mean, everything really. Apple's flat. It hasn't. It's not. It does look like it's going to open up higher, but Amazon, Google, Meta, Netflix, Tesla, they're all trading higher. That's good to see. Looking at some of the news behind the tape, like Apple, according to Bank of America, Apple's App Store revenue is up 14% in the fiscal Q2 to date. So, that's kind of positive, but it's just the start of the quarter. So we'll see. Google, hey, Google's out there. They're urging the Trump administration to push the Justice Department to reconsider its push to break up the search engine company. They just, they don't even want that to happen, and that makes sense. Now we're moving over to Dow Jones 30 stocks. We're talking Merck, a patent issue over a microscopic enzyme is threatening Merck's plans on their key cancer drug Keytruda. Disney, ticker DIS, they're said to be cutting about 6% of its staff across ABC News and Disney Entertainment Networks. Caterpillar, I mean, you look at a cat, it's up. It was much higher, but the reduction of the Mexico tariffs would be a positive for CAT. But Ludnick's recent comments, kind of pulled that back a little bit. So I'm a little cautious. We're talking McDonald's. McDonald's is trading lower, but they're giving its 43,000 restaurants a technology makeover. So in the long term, that could be positive for the stock. In terms of merger news, BlackRock, ticker BLK, they're striking a deal for the Panama ports after U.S. pressure. To Jazz Pharmaceuticals, JAZZ, they're going to be requiring Chimerix for $8.55 a share. In terms of guidance news, we're talking Campbell Soup, ticker CPB, Charlie Paul, boy, they see full year 2025 adjusted EPS coming in at $2.95 to $3.05. Street estimate has it at $3.12. That's a downtick. Foot Locker, they see full year 2025 EPS coming in at $1.35 to $1.65. Street estimates $1.22. That's an uptick. And Flutter Entertainment, ticker FLUT, Frank, Larry, Uncle Thomas, they see full year 2025 revenue up 13%. So I like to see that. In terms of shareholders meetings, there aren't really any, but there's a big Morgan Stanley tech conference going on today. NVIDIA is going to be making a presentation. Meta's going to be speaking. MasterCard, Texas Instrument. You got a lot of big tech companies at that conference. In terms of buyback news, ANF, Apple, Nancy Frank, Abercrombie and Fitch, they announced a 1.3 billion share buyback, and that's what I have for you for news hitting the tape this morning, Emily.
This is the type of data that NewsWare delivers daily. It's factual, it's market moving, and our alerting functions bring it to your attention as it happens. Go to www.newsware.com now and sign up for the trial and see for yourself the benefits that professional Newswire delivers. We've now made it to that time of the show for the Trade Talk pick of the day. There'll still cautionary waters to be wading in and finding these picks day in and day out, but what is your pick of the day today?
I'm going JD.com, John David, ticker JD. Earnings are due out tomorrow morning. EPS is 90 cents. Expected move is 9.87%. Okay. Yesterday was a really ugly day in the markets. Let's look at yesterday's call volume on JD.com. 43,048 versus 16,648. That's more than 2 to 1. Then you got the open interest, 807, 400 on the call side. 404, 499 on the put side. Not 2 to 1, but it's close on the open interest. And that's positive. Now, the major brokers are positive on the stock. I mean, Goldman's has Goldman, and I think it was JP Morgan are very positive on it. Morgan Stanley is neutral, but the majority of them are saying this is a good one. And I just want to get in under 42. I want to get in 41.80-ish, 41.90-ish. If I can get in under 42, I think it'll be a great opportunity. So that's my pick of the day. JD.com, ticker JD, John David, Emily.
JD.com it is today. We will follow that one ahead of that earnings report. And coming up, we will do a recap on yesterday's pick of the day. Again, one ahead of that earnings report. But first, let's take a look at the current breaking headlines that have hit the tape in our hot off the press segment. Bill, take it away.
Listen, I'll start off with things from Donald Trump. I mean, last night he did say that he wants to kill that $52.7 billion semiconductor chips subsidy law that has Biden's name on it. He came out and he said that we're, reclaiming the Panama Canal after BlackRock-led group did a deal to buy a big stake in it. And then there's Howard Ludnick saying that they're eyeing tariff relief for the USMCA deal. We'll see if that happens. He was on TV earlier this morning talking about a possible announcement this afternoon. We'll have to continue to wait and see what comes out of that. Let's see. In terms of equity news, copper futures are trading higher due to the 25% tariff imports. Freeport McMoran is one to watch there. AppLovin, ticker APB, they're in talks to sell their gaming unit, a $900 million deal. Apple Paul, Palantir, PLTR, and TWG Global announced a joint venture. There's for the analysts out there saying he believes it's time to buy defense stocks. The time was to buy them yesterday, by the way, not today. U.S. CHIPS office will lose 2/5 of its staff. Verizon, Commerce Department plans on changes to the broadband grant program. That's good for Starlink, bad for Verizon. Costco, we got to talk Costco. Their earnings, I think, come out tomorrow after the bell, but today's Wednesday. Typically, they release their sales figure on Wednesday, the first Wednesday of each month. So keep an eye out for Wednesday for a Costco sales figure to come out after the bell today. COST, Charlie Oscar Sam Tom. Albertsons, ticker ACI, they're going to be replacing Aspen Technologies, AZPN, and the S&P 400 on March 11th. That's all I'm seeing this morning.
Okay, Bill, before we dive into midweek trading on this Wednesday, let's do that check-in on yesterday's pick of the day, which was Abercrombie and Fitch. They did release earnings. They've reported Q4 adjusted EPS of $3.57. That's versus $2.95 last year. Revenue for the quarter came in at $1.58 billion. That was a tick ahead of the consensus of $1.57 billion. Comparable sales rose 14%. In terms of forward guidance, the company sees a full year 2025 EPS of $10.40 to $11.40. The consensus here was $11.30, which is on the higher end of that forecast. And speaking of forecasts, their forecast for sales growth is cautious for 2025, 3% to 5%. And you did give us that piece of news about their stock repurchase program during your NewsWare Alerts breakdown. Sifting through, overall, a pretty good report. They're cautious looking ahead, but it seems like all of us are, so I can't blame Abercrombie and Fitch on that one. But investors are this morning. But you were trading this one ahead of earnings. Bill, how did your call work out?
Listen, if you follow the model and you're looking for grab that 1%, it was more than there because listen, yesterday morning the stock opened up at 95.08 and it closed at 96.11. Right there, there's your 1%. But it did take a dive and it fell down yesterday to 92.41. But you look at it this morning and the stock hit a high of 149. So the 1% was absolutely there, whether you got it at the opening price or my suggested idea. But this morning, but the 1% and A&F, Apple Nancy Frank, it was absolutely there yesterday. It was a winner, Emily.
Absolutely there for that win, grabbing that gain when you see it. And we will check in with you tomorrow about today's JD.com pick of the day. Bill, thank you as always for your expert insight. Join us back here tomorrow and each weekday morning at NewsWare's Trade Talk when we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Again, I'm your host, Emily Advani, here with trading anchor Bill Olson. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.